Captain Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of his ship, the Indomitable staring at the message that had just arrived from Earth. His hands trembled slightly as he read the words again, hoping he had misunderstood. But the message was clear, brutally clear. The Galactic Council had issued a decree. Humanity must surrender 70% of its colony worlds to the Vrexian Empire within 30 days. The reason given was simple. Humans had violated mining rights in contested space. The evidence was presented, voted upon, and approved. 11 species voted yes. Only humanity voted no. Dae-hyun knew the evidence was fake. Everyone knew it. The Vrexians had been mining those asteroids for years before humans even arrived. But truth didn't matter to the Council. Power mattered. Numbers mattered. And humanity was the newest member, the weakest voice in a chamber of ancient civilizations. He looked out at the stars beyond his viewport. Somewhere out there, 3 colony worlds in his sector were waiting, families who had left Earth generations ago to build new lives. Farmers, teachers, engineers, children who had never even seen Earth. All of them would have to leave now. All of them would lose their homes. His tactical officer, Hana, approached quietly. She was young, barely 30, but her eyes held the same anger he felt. "Captain, the evacuation transports are arriving at Haven Colony. They're asking for military escort." Dae-hyun nodded. "Send 2 frigates. Make sure every ship gets through safely." Hana hesitated. "Sir, the colonists are refusing to board. They're saying this is their home. They're saying they won't leave." Of course they wouldn't. Dae-hyun wouldn't leave either if he were them. Haven Colony had been settled 40 years ago. Trees had been planted. Cities had been built. People had been born there, lived there, loved there. And now the Council, sitting in their safe stations light years away, had decided it all meant nothing. "Tell them," Dae-hyun said slowly, "that if they don't leave, the Vrexians will come. And the Vrexians won't ask nicely." The next few days were agony. Dae-hyun watched as transport after transport lifted off from Haven Colony, each one carrying families with whatever possessions they could grab. Many left with nothing but the clothes on their backs. The Vrexians had made it clear that human structures would be demolished. Human crops would be burned. Nothing could remain. His sister was among the evacuees. Dae-hyun received a short video message from her. She stood in front of the house she had built with her husband, tears streaming down her face. "We planted a garden here," she said, her voice breaking. "Our daughter took her first steps in that garden, and now we have to leave it all behind. Tell me, brother, why did we join the Council? Why did we think they would treat us as equals?" Dae-hyun had no answer. He had believed in the Council once, when humanity had developed faster than light travel 50 years ago. Joining the galactic community had seemed like humanity's greatest achievement. Finally, humans were not alone in the universe. Finally, they had neighbors, partners, friends. But the Council had never seen humanity as friends. They saw humans as children, primitives, newcomers who should be grateful for the privilege of membership. The Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had systems, procedures, laws that had been established long before humans left Earth's solar system. And now those laws were being used to destroy everything humanity had built. On the 5th day of evacuations, Dae-hyun received another message from Earth. The Prime Minister had requested an emergency session with the Council. Earth's diplomats had found evidence proving the mining violations were committed by Vrexian corporations, not humans. Ambassador Jiwoo, one of humanity's most respected diplomats, would lead a delegation to present this evidence. Dae-hyun felt a spark of hope. Jiwoo had been his mentor at the academy. The man was brilliant, charismatic, and absolutely dedicated to peace. If anyone could convince the Council, it was Jiwoo. The delegation would travel on a civilian transport called the Harmony. 50 of humanity's best and brightest would accompany Jiwoo, scientists, legal experts, historians. They would present their case at the neutral station Kepler 442. The Council had agreed to hear them. Dae-hyun allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this could be resolved peacefully. Maybe the Council would see reason. Maybe justice would prevail. He continued overseeing evacuations, watching families leave their homes, watching children cry as they were carried onto transports. Each face burned into his memory. Each tear felt like acid on his conscience, but hope kept him going. In a few days, Jiwoo would present the evidence. The Council would see they had been deceived. Humanity's worlds would be returned. Justice would be served. Dae-hyun believed this because he had to. because the alternative was too terrible to imagine. He stood on his bridge, watching another transport lift off from Haven Colony, and waited for news from Kepler 442. The Harmony was a beautiful ship. It had been designed for diplomacy, not war. Its hull was painted white with blue stripes, colors that represented peace in human culture. Large viewports lined its sides so passengers could see the stars. Ambassador Jiwoo had chosen this ship specifically because it looked non-threatening. 50 people were aboard. Jiwoo stood in the main cabin, reviewing the evidence one final time. The data was undeniable. Vrexian mining companies had been illegally extracting resources from the contested asteroids for 15 years. They had falsified records, bribed officials, and when humans discovered the truth, they had blamed humanity instead. "We'll present this to the council," Jiwoo told his team, "and they'll have no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Justice will be served." His assistant, a young woman named Minji, looked less certain. "Sir, what if they don't listen? What if they've already made up their minds?" Jiwoo smiled warmly. "Then we make them listen. That's what diplomacy is, Minji. We find the words that open closed minds. We've done it before. We'll do it again." The Harmony approached Kepler 442 station exactly on schedule. The station was massive, a neutral meeting place that had hosted countless diplomatic sessions over the centuries. Ships from dozens of species orbited peacefully. This was a place of words, not weapons. Jiwoo stood at the viewport watching the station grow larger. In a few hours, he would address the council. He would show them the evidence. Humanity's colonies would be saved. This nightmare would end. Then the alarm started screaming. 6 Vrexian warships appeared from behind the station's moon. They moved fast, weapons already charging. The Harmony's pilot shouted into the communication system, "This is civilian transport Harmony. We are a diplomatic vessel. Do not fire!" The Vrexians fired. The first blast tore through the Harmony's engine section. The ship shuddered violently. People were thrown from their seats. Minji screamed. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the cabin. Jiwoo grabbed the communication console. "This is Ambassador Jiwoo. We are unarmed. We are here for a council session. Cease fire immediately." The Vrexians didn't respond. They fired again. The second blast hit the Harmony's central section. The ship began breaking apart. Atmosphere rushed out through the breaches. People were pulled toward the ruptures, their screams cut short as vacuum claimed them. Jiwoo held onto the console with one hand and activated the emergency broadcast with the other. He knew he was dying. Everyone on the Harmony was dying. But he could still send a message. He could still warn humanity. "Earth, this is Jiwoo," he gasped, struggling to breathe. "The council planned this. They never intended to hear our evidence. They are complicit. Do not trust." The third blast struck. The Harmony exploded in a brilliant flash of light. 50 lives ended in an instant. All the evidence, all the proof of Vrexian crimes, all of humanity's hope for peaceful resolution, scattered into space as debris. The Vrexian warships returned to their positions as if nothing had happened. Hours later, the council released a statement. It expressed deep regret over the tragic misunderstanding. The Vrexian commander had apparently mistaken the civilian transport for a military threat. The council offered its condolences to the families of the deceased. The Vrexians issued an apology. No one would be punished. No one would be held accountable. It was simply an unfortunate accident. Daehyun heard the news on his bridge. He had been waiting for Jiwoo's triumph. Instead, he received word of Jiwoo's death. His mentor, the man who had taught him about honor and duty, murdered in cold blood. The bridge went silent. Every officer stared at their screens, unable to process what they were hearing. Hana turned to look at Daehyun, her face pale. "They killed them," she whispered. "They killed everyone." Before Daehyun could respond, another message arrived. This one was from the colony world New Seoul. New Seoul was home to 4 million people. It had been named after the ancient Korean capital on Earth. The colonists had built beautiful cities there, mixing traditional architecture with modern technology. It was considered one of humanity's most successful colonies. Vrexian warships had entered orbit around New Seoul an hour ago. They claimed the planet was now under Vrexian occupation, as per the council decree. When the colonists refused to evacuate immediately, the Vrexians had opened fire, not on military targets. On cities, Daehyun watched the footage in horror. Orbital bombardment turned entire city blocks into fire. Millions of people tried to flee, but there was nowhere to go. The Vrexians fired again and again, methodically destroying every major population center. 4 million people died in 3 hours. When it was over, the Vrexians issued a statement. The colonists had been resisting lawful occupation. The bombardment had been necessary to maintain order. The council expressed regret over the loss of life but supported the Vrexian action as appropriate under the circumstances. Dae-hyun stood frozen on his bridge. Ji-woo dead. New Seoul destroyed. 4 million people murdered. And the council called it regret. Appropriate, necessary. Something inside him broke. Something that could never be repaired. Hana stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. Captain, what do we do? Dae-hyun looked at the screen showing New Seoul's burning remains. He thought of Ji-woo's final message. He thought of his sister's garden, abandoned because the council had decided humanity didn't deserve it. We do what we have to, he said quietly. We show them what happens when you push humanity too far. Earth's government issued an immediate demand for justice. The council responded by reducing humanity's evacuation timeline from 30 days to 10 days. The message was clear. Comply or die, humanity would have to choose. The emergency session of Earth's unified government lasted 18 hours. Representatives from every human world gathered in the Great Chamber in Geneva. Outside, millions of people stood in silence, waiting for the decision that would determine humanity's future. Prime Minister Yoona stood at the podium, exhausted. She had not slept in 3 days. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but her voice remained steady. We have heard all arguments. Now we must vote. But before we do, I want everyone in this chamber to understand what we are choosing. She activated the main screen. Images of New Seoul appeared. Cities reduced to ash. Bodies in the streets. Children's toys melted by the heat of orbital bombardment. This is what compliance looks like. This is what happens when we trust the Council's mercy. Then she showed Ji-woo's final transmission, his desperate words cut short by the explosion. This is what happens when we seek justice through their system. They murdered our diplomats. They murdered 4 million civilians. And they called it regret. The chamber was absolutely silent. If we surrender our worlds, Yoona continued, we will be scattered across the galaxy. We will become refugees in our own space. And the Council will know that humanity can be pushed, broken, and discarded. They will do this again. And again, until nothing remains of us. Admiral Sung-min, the commander of Earth's military forces, stood. He was an old man, his hair completely white, but his bearing was still military sharp. Prime Minister, I must present the military assessment. Our fleet numbers 12,000 combat-capable vessels. The Council commands over 500,000 warships. If we fight, we will lose. Earth itself may be destroyed. A representative from the Mars colony jumped to her feet. Then we surrender. We give up everything our grandparents built. We accept that humanity will forever be the galaxy's victim. I'm not saying we surrender, Sung-min replied calmly. I'm saying everyone in this room needs to understand the cost. If we choose war, billions may die. Earth may burn. But if we choose surrender, humanity as a free species may die anyway, just more slowly. The debate raged for hours. Some argued for surrender, for survival at any cost. Others demanded war, demanded vengeance for New Seoul. Still others proposed desperate diplomatic solutions that everyone knew would fail. Finally, as dawn broke over Geneva, Yoona called for the vote. The question was simple. Would humanity surrender its worlds, or would humanity fight? The vote was not unanimous. Millions of humans wanted peace, wanted survival, wanted to believe that somehow this could be resolved without more death. But when the final count was displayed, the result was clear. Humanity would not surrender. Not one more world. Not one more colony. If the Council wanted human planets, they would have to take them by force, and humanity would make them pay for every inch. The chamber erupted in shouts, both of support and despair. Yoona stood silently, knowing that she had just condemned billions to war. But she also knew that some things mattered more than survival. Freedom mattered. Dignity mattered. The right to exist without bowing to tyrants mattered. We have 10 days, she announced. We use them well. Earth transformed overnight. Every shipyard across 50 human worlds went into maximum production. Civilian ships were retrofitted with weapons. Mining stations became ammunition factories. Every human with military training was called to service. Dae-hyun received his new orders directly from Admiral Sung-min. He was promoted to Commodore and given command of a battle group, 12 ships including the Indomitable. His mission was to defend the colony world Terra Nova, the first target the Council fleet would likely attack. His engineer, Tae-yang, came to him with a prototype. The man looked like he hadn't slept in days, his eyes bloodshot but excited. "Commodore, I've been working on something. A quantum disruption weapon. It can disable enemy shields for approximately 30 seconds. I've only built 3 prototypes, but if they work, we might survive the first engagement," Dae-hyun finished. "Install them immediately." Across human space, scientists worked desperately on any advantage they could create. Yoonji, a quantum physicist who had lost her husband at New Seoul, volunteered for a black operations mission. She had a plan, she told Admiral Sung-min, a way to hurt the Council where they felt safe. She would need a small team in complete secrecy. Sung-min approved it without hesitation. Humanity needed every weapon, every tactic, every desperate chance. Intelligence Officer Hyeon assembled a team of hackers and infiltrators. Their mission was nearly impossible. Steal Council military codes, penetrate their communication networks, find any weakness in the vast machine that was the Council's war apparatus. "We're not just fighting ships," Hyun told his team. "We're fighting an empire that has ruled for thousands of years. They think they know everything about warfare. We're going to teach them they're wrong." On the 5th day, the Council sent a final message. Humanity had 5 days remaining. Surrender or face annihilation. The message was broadcast across every human world, meant to break human morale. Instead, it strengthened human resolve. People who had been uncertain about the war now stood firm. Children too young to fight helped build ammunition. Elderly citizens who remembered Earth before the stars offered their savings to fund the war effort. Humanity had been fractured before, divided by politics and ideology and the vast distances between worlds. But the Council's cruelty had accomplished what centuries of human diplomacy could not. It had unified humanity completely. Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now the flagship of his battle group. Hana commanded one of the escort frigates. Taeyang's quantum disruptors were installed and tested. They worked, barely, but they worked. Terra Nova waited below. 2 million colonists who refused to evacuate. They would defend their home or die trying. The Council fleet was coming. Sensors had detected them 3 days away. Overwhelming numbers, overwhelming firepower, overwhelming confidence. They expected humanity to break. To flee, to beg for mercy at the last moment. They didn't understand. Humanity had no mercy left to beg for. The Council had killed it at New Seoul. The Council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Terra Nova system, exactly when predicted. 60,000 warships, Phyrexian cruisers, Thalaxian battleships, Chronorian destroyers, the combined might of 3 of the Council's most powerful military species. Against them, Commodore Dae-hyun's battle group of 12 human ships, hidden in the asteroid belt near Terra Nova. The Council fleet's commander, a Phyrexian named Krell, broadcast on all frequencies. His voice was filled with contempt. "Humans of Terra Nova, you have been ordered to evacuate. You have refused. This world now belongs to the Phyrexian Empire. Surrender immediately and you will be permitted to leave alive. Resist and you will share the fate of New Seoul." No response came from Terra Nova. No ships rose to meet the fleet. The planet appeared defenseless, Krell sneered. The humans had fled after all, like the cowards they were. He ordered his fleet forward. They would take the planet without firing a shot. "All ships proceed to orbital positions. Begin scanning for any remaining human presence." The Council fleet moved deeper into the system, their formation loose and confident. They had fought weak enemies before. Humans were no different. They passed the asteroid belt. Dae-hyun watched the fleet move past his position on the tactical display. 60,000 ships. His hands were steady on the command console, but his heart pounded like a war drum. "Taeyang, are the quantum disruptors ready?" "Ready, Commodore," Taeyang replied from the engine room. "But remember, we'll only get 30 seconds. After that, their shields will adapt. 30 seconds is all we need. All ships prepare to engage. Target the command vessels first. And remember, we don't need to win. We just need to make them bleed." The Council fleet continued forward, unaware that 12 human ships were locked onto their command cluster. The ships carrying Krell and his senior officers. The ships directing the entire fleet. Fire, Daehyun ordered. The quantum disruptors activated. Across the entire council formation, shields flickered and died. For 30 seconds, 60,000 warships were as vulnerable as civilian transports. Daehyun's battle group opened fire with everything they had. Missiles, railguns, plasma cannons. The Indomitable's main battery struck Krell's flagship directly in the command section. The massive vessel's bridge exploded in a brilliant flash. Krell died instantly, along with 300 senior officers. 11 more command ships died in the opening volley. The council fleet, suddenly leaderless and confused, scattered in all directions. Ships collided with each other. Orders conflicted. Chaos spread like wildfire. All ships attack pattern Delta, Daehyun shouted. Hit them fast and keep moving. The human ships dove into the council formation like wolves among sheep. They were outnumbered 5,000 to 1, but they used that chaos. Human ships were smaller, faster, more maneuverable than the massive council vessels. They struck and vanished before the enemy could respond. Hana's frigate destroyed 3 Vrexian destroyers before they could even activate their weapons. Taeyang's quantum disruptors fired again, targeting a cluster of battleships. 30 more seconds of vulnerability. 30 more seconds of slaughter. But the council fleet was recovering. Shields came back online. Secondary commanders took control. The sheer weight of numbers began to tell. A human corvette took a direct hit and exploded. Then another. Then a destroyer. Commodore, we're taking heavy casualties, Hana reported, her voice strained. We can't hold this position much longer. We don't need to hold, Daehyun replied. Activate the mines. For 3 days, human ships had been planting mines throughout Terra Nova's orbital space. Thousands of them hidden among debris and asteroids. Simple weapons, but effective. The council fleet, trying to regroup and surround the human ships, sailed directly into the minefield. Explosions rippled through their formation. Dozens of ships died. Hundreds more were damaged. Daehyun ordered the retreat. All ships fall back to Terra Nova's surface defense grid. We've done enough. The human battle group disengaged, racing toward the planet with the council fleet in pursuit. But as the council ships approached Terra Nova, the planet's surface defense batteries opened fire. Railgun slugs and missile swarms tore into the leading council vessels. The council fleet pulled back, regrouping at a safer distance. They had lost over 25,000 ships. Their command structure was shattered. Their confidence was broken. This was supposed to be easy. Humans were supposed to be weak. Daehyun surveyed his battle group. 5 ships remained. 7 had been destroyed, including 200 brave souls who had known they wouldn't survive but fought anyway. The Indomitable was damaged, her hull scarred by dozens of impacts. But she was still flying, Commodore. We're receiving a transmission from the council fleet, Hana reported. Put it through. A Thalaxian officer appeared on the screen, clearly shaken. Human commander, we are withdrawing. But this is not over. The council will send a larger fleet. You cannot win. Daehyun leaned forward, his face hard. Tell the council this. Every world they want, we'll defend. Every ship they send, we'll destroy. And every time they kill our people, we'll make them pay 10 times over. You came here expecting easy prey. Now you know the truth. Humanity doesn't surrender, ever. The transmission ended. The council fleet began its retreat, limping back toward friendly space with less than half their original numbers. On Terra Nova's surface, 2 million colonists watched the council ships leave. They had survived. Their world was still theirs. People wept with relief and joy, but Daehyun felt no joy. He stood on his damaged bridge looking at the list of casualties. 200 names, 200 families who would grieve. And this was only the first battle. The council would return with more ships, more weapons, more determination. Admiral Sungmin's message arrived an hour later. Commodore Daehyun, you have won humanity's first victory. The whole species celebrates your courage. But intelligence indicates the council is assembling a massive retaliatory fleet. They're calling it the final solution. They intend to wipe out humanity completely, starting with Earth itself. Daehyun closed his eyes. They had won the battle, but the war was just beginning. And humanity was still hopelessly outnumbered. Admiral, we'll need a different strategy, he said. We can't fight them conventionally. We need to hurt them where they feel safe. I agree, Sungmin replied. That's why I'm activating Protocol Vengeance. Yoonji's Black Operations team is ready. We're going to take this war to the Council's doorstep. If they want to exterminate humanity, they're going to learn that humans can bite back. The Battle of Terra Nova had shown the galaxy something they didn't expect. Humanity could fight. Humanity could bleed the Council. And most importantly, humanity would never stop fighting as long as a single human remained alive. The Council had wanted a quick war. They were about to learn that humanity specialized in the opposite. Yunji's team consisted of 12 people, scientists, engineers, soldiers. They traveled in a stolen Chronorian cargo ship, their identities hidden. Their mission known only to Admiral Sungmin and Prime Minister Yuna. Their target was deep in Council space, a massive fuel refinery orbiting a gas giant in the Vrexian home system. The refinery processed fuel for thousands of Council warships. Destroying it would cripple the Council's ability to wage war for months. But it was also one of the most heavily defended installations in the galaxy. Yunji checked her equipment one final time. The quantum explosives were stable, the timers set, the escape route planned. Everything was ready. She thought of her husband, killed at New Sol, and felt the familiar cold anger settle over her. This was for him, for all of them. Team, we're approaching the refinery. Remember the plan. Get in, plant the charges, get out. We have 15 minutes. Not a second more. The stolen cargo ship docked without incident. Yunji and her team, wearing Chronorian uniforms, walked through the refinery's corridors like they belonged there. The guards barely glanced at them. Why would they? This was Council space. This was safe. They planted 8 charges throughout the refinery's core. Enough explosive to turn the entire station into a small sun. Yunji set the timer for 20 minutes. Time enough for them to escape, but not enough for the Council to evacuate. They made it back to their ship with 2 minutes to spare. As they undocked, alarms began screaming throughout the refinery. Someone had found one of the charges. Go, 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 Yunji shouted. Their ship accelerated, racing away from the refinery at maximum speed. Behind them, Council defense ships began launching. Weapons charged. The timer hit 0. The refinery exploded in a blast visible from 3 star systems away. The explosion consumed the defense ships, the orbital platforms, everything within 100,000 kilometers. The Vrexian home system's fuel production dropped by 70% in an instant. Across the galaxy, similar strikes were happening. Hyun's intelligence teams had successfully infiltrated Council communication networks. They knew where the supply depots were, where the shipyards were, where the Council kept the resources that fed their war machine. And human strike teams hit them all. Captain Soman commanded a wolf pack of 6 stealth destroyers. Her mission was simple: hunt Council supply convoys. Don't engage their warships. Don't fight fair battles. Just destroy the supplies that kept the Council fleet moving. In 1 month, Soman's pack destroyed 87 convoys. Thousands of tons of ammunition, spare parts, food, medical supplies. Gone. The Council's grand armadas, preparing to invade human space, found themselves short on everything. The Council called it terrorism. Their media broadcast images of destroyed stations and civilian casualties. They demanded humanity stop these cowardly attacks and fight honorably. Prime Minister Yuna responded in a broadcast heard across the galaxy. The Council murdered 4 million civilians at New Sol. They destroyed a diplomatic ship carrying unarmed ambassadors. They demanded we surrender our worlds or die. And now they speak of honor? Now they complain about how we fight? We will use every weapon, every tactic, every method available to us, because unlike the Council, we're fighting for our survival, not our pride. But humanity didn't just fight with weapons. They fought with information. Hyun's teams leaked thousands of documents proving Council corruption. They showed how the Council had oppressed smaller species for centuries. How the Vrexians had committed atrocities the Council had covered up. How the Council's justice was nothing more than tyranny dressed in diplomatic language. Dozens of species, long oppressed by the Council, began to listen. The Thalaxians, whose honor code was sacred, were horrified to learn the Council had been deceiving them for generations. When evidence emerged that the Vrexians had deliberately orchestrated the New Sol massacre, the Thalaxian Empire withdrew from the Council entirely. 3 other species followed. The Council's coalition was fracturing. Daehyun's battle group continued fighting, but now they operated behind enemy lines. Quick strikes against Council bases, raids on communication stations. They never stayed in one place long enough for the Council to catch them. but the war was taking its toll. Daehyun's original battle group of 12 ships was down to 3. The Indomitable was held together by emergency repairs and Taeyang's desperate engineering. Hana's frigate had been destroyed in a raid on a Vrexian supply depot. She had survived evacuating with most of her crew, but 73 people had died. Every victory cost lives. Every successful mission meant more names on the memorial lists. Daehyun read every name, remembered every face. He owed them that much. Taeyang came to him one evening, his right arm in a sling from a reactor explosion. "Commodore, I've been analyzing the Council's response patterns. They're adapting to our tactics. Soon the quantum disruptors won't give us enough advantage. We need something new. What do you have in mind?" "I've been working on a computer virus. If we can inject it into their fleet coordination system, we can make their ships fight each other. But getting it into their system means getting close to their command nexus." Very close, Daehyun understood. It was a suicide mission. How close? Inside the station, someone would have to physically access their central computer. Then we'll find a way. Across human space, families received notifications of casualties. Fathers, mothers, sons, daughters. The list grew longer every day. Earth cities held memorial services every week. Mars colony turned an entire valley into a cemetery. Every human world mourned, but no one suggested surrender. The Council had made sure of that at New Seoul. They had shown humanity what surrender meant. Death or slavery, nothing in between, so humanity kept fighting, not because they believed they could win, but because stopping meant extinction. Admiral Seung-min watched the tactical displays in Earth's command center. The Council was assembling a massive fleet near their capital. Over 300,000 warships. They were calling it the Extinction Fleet. Its destination was clear: Earth. The Council had decided that if humanity wouldn't submit, humanity would be erased. Every human world would be burned. Every human ship destroyed. Every human exterminated. They would make an example of humanity that would terrify the galaxy for 1,000 years. Seung-min studied the numbers. Earth's defenders numbered barely 12,000 ships now. Most of humanity's fleet was scattered across the galaxy, fighting the asymmetric war. Against 300,000 Council warships, Earth had no chance. But Seung-min was not afraid. He had been fighting for 60 years, since he was a young officer in Earth's first space navy. He had learned one truth in all that time: numbers weren't everything. "Contact Yoonji," he ordered. "Tell her it's time for her primary mission. The Council wants to gather their fleet in one place. Perfect. We'll make them regret it." The asymmetric war had bought humanity time. Now that time would be used for one final, desperate gambit. Earth would make it stand. And the Council would learn that cornering humanity was the worst mistake they had ever made. The Extinction Fleet gathered near the Council's capital station, a sight that would have terrified any species in the galaxy. 300,000 warships from 8 different species. The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Their mission was simple: fly to Earth and destroy it, along with every human in the solar system. The Council broadcast their intentions openly. They wanted humanity to know. They wanted humans to feel the terror, to understand that resistance was futile. Some Council members suggested offering humanity one final chance to surrender. But the Vrexian representative refused. "Humanity has proven they cannot be allowed to exist. We will show the galaxy what happens to species who defy the Council." On Earth, Admiral Seung-min watched the Extinction Fleet's preparations and made his own. Every civilian in the Earth system was evacuated to Mars and the Moon. Earth's cities were emptied. 12 million people left their homes, taking only what they could carry, leaving Earth as bait for the trap. Daehyun brought his 3 remaining ships back to Earth. The Indomitable limped into orbit, her hull scarred by 100 battles, her crew exhausted but unbroken. Taeyang had kept her flying through engineering miracles and prayer. Now she would fight one last time. Every human ship in the galaxy received the same order: return to Earth. This would be humanity's final stand. Win or lose, the war would be decided here. 12,000 human ships gathered to defend their homeworld, against 300,000. The math was brutal, but no one suggested fleeing. Earth was home. Earth was everything. They would defend it or die trying. Yoonji and her team were already in position. While the Council assembled their fleet, Yoonji had traveled to the Council's Central Nexus Station, the massive facility that coordinated all Council military operations. Every order, Every communication, every tactical decision flowed through this station. Getting inside had been nearly impossible. Hyun's intelligence network had provided fake credentials. Yoonji's team had disguised themselves as maintenance workers. They had bluffed and bribed and sneaked their way past dozens of security checkpoints. Now they stood in the Nexus Station's core, surrounded by the most advanced computers in the galaxy. Taeyang's virus was loaded and ready. The quantum cascade explosives were planted throughout the station's critical systems. "Team, we have two objectives," Yoonji said quietly. "Upload the virus to disrupt their fleet coordination. Then blow this station into atoms." Questions? Her team shook their heads. They all knew this was a one-way mission. The station had 12,000 crew members. Many were civilians. But this was war, and the station had to be destroyed. One of her team members, a young soldier named Bora, looked troubled. "Ma'am, are we really going to kill all these people?" Eunji met her eyes. "The Council killed 4 million at New Seoul, 50 diplomats on the Harmony. Billions more are about to die at Earth if we fail. I've made my peace with this. If you can't, leave now." Bora stayed. The extinction fleet entered faster than light travel, heading toward Earth. They would arrive in 6 hours. The Council's leaders watched from safe stations, confident that finally the human problem would be solved. On Earth, Sungmin addressed the defense fleet. His face appeared on every ship's screen, an old man who had spent his life protecting humanity. "Captains and crews of Earth's defense force, the enemy believes we are defeated. They believe our small numbers make victory impossible. They don't understand that humanity has never counted odds when fighting for survival. Every person in this fleet knows someone who died at New Seoul. Every one of us has lost friends, family, comrades. The Council thinks that breaks us. They're wrong. It makes us dangerous." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every human who ever lived. For our children who deserve to see tomorrow. For our ancestors who dreamed of the stars. We don't need to destroy their entire fleet. We just need to survive. If Earth still stands at the end of this day, we win. So make them pay for every meter of space. Make them remember that humanity will never submit. Fight well, fight hard, and if you die today, die knowing you saved everything that matters." The extinction fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at Earth's orbit. 300,000 warships filled the space around the planet. Their weapons charged. Their commanders confident. They found 12,000 human ships waiting. The Council's supreme commander, a Vrexian named Delcor, laughed when he saw the human numbers. "Is this all? This is the great human resistance. Open fire. Wipe them out." The extinction fleet advanced. The human fleet held position, forming a defensive sphere around Earth. The first missile exchanges lit up the darkness of space. Human ships began dying immediately. 5 ships, 10, 20, but they didn't break. They held their line. Daehyun commanded the Indomitable from the front lines. "All batteries fire at will. Taeyang, I need everything the quantum disruptors can give us." "They're adapting faster now," Taeyang shouted over the sound of explosions. "We'll only get 15 seconds of shield disruption." "Then make those 15 seconds count." The battle became chaos. 300,000 ships against 12,000. The human fleet should have been overwhelmed in minutes. But they fought with desperation that shocked the Council forces. Human ships rammed enemy vessels when they ran out of ammunition. Captains ordered self-destruct sequences to take nearby enemy ships with them. Pilots flew damaged fighters into enemy bridges. The Council fleet began taking heavy casualties. Not enough to threaten their victory, but far more than they expected. Delcor watched in growing fury as his overwhelming advantage slowly ground down the human resistance. "Why won't they break?" he screamed. "Why won't they run?" His tactical officer had no answer. The humans were dying, but they kept fighting. It made no logical sense. Then 6 hours into the battle, everything changed. At the Council Nexus station, Yoonji activated the virus. "Upload complete. Detonation in 30 seconds. Team, it's been an honor." The virus spread through the Council's military network like wildfire. Suddenly, Council ships stopped receiving coordinated orders. Their tactical displays showed conflicting information. Ships that should have been allies appeared as enemies on their sensors. And the extinction fleet, packed tightly together around Earth, began firing on each other. A Vrexian cruiser's weapons locked onto what it thought was a human destroyer. It fired. The target was actually a Thalaxian battleship. The Thalaxian ship, seeing itself under attack, returned fire. Within minutes, dozens of ships were engaged in friendly fire incidents. Delcor tried to regain control, but his communications to the fleet were scrambled. His orders were lost in the chaos. What's happening? Why can't we? The Nexus station exploded. The quantum cascade blast created a shockwave that disrupted faster-than-light communication across half the galaxy. The extinction fleet was suddenly completely isolated, every ship operating independently, unable to coordinate with anyone. In the confusion, Dae-hyun saw his chance. All ships attack pattern Omega. Break their formation. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, drove into the Council fleet like a spear. They targeted the flagship, Delcor's massive command vessel. Taeyang's quantum disruptors fired one last time. The flagship's shields died. Every human ship in range fired on the flagship simultaneously. The massive vessel, designed to withstand anything, broke apart under the concentrated assault. Delcor died screaming orders that no one could hear. The Council fleet broke. Without coordination, without leadership, facing an enemy that refused to die, they scattered. Ships fled in every direction. Some continued fighting each other. Others simply ran for home. The Battle of Earth was over. Humanity had won. The silence after the battle was strange. For hours, the space around Earth had been filled with weapons fire, explosions, screaming communication channels. Now there was only the quiet hum of surviving ships and the soft breathing of exhausted crews. Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the debris field that surrounded Earth. Thousands of ships, both human and alien, destroyed. Millions of lives ended, but Earth still stood, damaged, scarred, but standing. Commodore were receiving a transmission, Hana reported. She had survived the battle, though her new ship was barely functioning. It's from the Council. They're requesting a ceasefire. Dae-hyun almost laughed. A ceasefire? After everything? Put them through. The Thalaxian ambassador appeared on screen. He looked old, tired, defeated. Commander, the Council wishes to negotiate terms of peace. We acknowledge that the war cannot be won. We are prepared to offer— Stop! Dae-hyun interrupted. You don't negotiate with me. You negotiate with Earth's government. And you better offer more than just words, because humanity isn't interested in your regrets anymore. The negotiations took 3 months. The Council offered to restore all human worlds. Prime Minister Yuna rejected the offer. The Council offered massive reparations. Yuna rejected that too. The Council offered technology, territory, favorable trade agreements. Yuna rejected everything. What do you want? The Vrexian ambassador finally asked, frustrated and confused. Yuna leaned forward, her eyes hard. We want the Galactic Council dissolved, permanently. We want every species to have equal representation in whatever organization replaces it. We want the Vrexian Empire dismantled and its leaders tried for war crimes. We want a galaxy where no single group can ever do to another species what you did to us. That's what we want. The Council chamber erupted in outrage. Dissolve the Council? It had existed for 5,000 years. It was the foundation of galactic civilization. But humanity held all the advantages now. The Council's military was shattered. Their economy was collapsing. And 53 species, seeing humanity's victory, had declared independence from Council authority. The galaxy was changing whether the Council accepted it or not. Admiral Sungmin supported Yuna's demands completely. The Council proved it cannot be trusted with power. It used that power to oppress and destroy. If the galaxy wants peace, the Council must end. Not reformed. Not restructured. Ended. The Thalaxians were the first to agree. Their honor had been stained by the Council's lies. They wanted a fresh start. Other species followed. One by one, the Council's member states abandoned the old system. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the Galactic Council officially dissolved. In its place, 53 species formed the Galactic Assembly, a democratic federation where every member had equal voting rights. No species could be outvoted. No species could be forced to surrender their worlds. The rules were designed to prevent another tragedy like New Sol. The Vrexian Empire was dismantled. Its territory was divided among the species it had conquered. The Vrexian leaders responsible for New Sol's massacre were put on trial. Most were found guilty and imprisoned. Some were executed, though humanity argued against it. Yuna believed in justice, not revenge, though many humans disagreed. The families of New Sol's victims wanted blood. They wanted every Vrexian responsible to suffer, but Yuna stood firm. If we become the monsters we fought against, then what did we win? Justice, yes. Accountability, absolutely. But not genocide. We're better than that. It took years for the anger to fade. Some families never forgave the Vrexians. But slowly the galaxy began healing. Dae-hyun retired from military service. He couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't command ships, couldn't make decisions that sent people to die. He had enough ghosts in his memory. He returned to New Sol. The planet was being rebuilt. 4 million people had died there, but survivors were coming back, bringing their children, replanting the gardens, rebuilding the cities. The Council had tried to erase New Sol. Humanity refused to let it stay erased. Dae-hyun helped build a memorial in the capital city. 4 million names carved into black stone. It took 3 years to complete. Every name remembered. Every life honored. On the memorial's dedication day, Dae-hyun stood before the massive wall of names and thought of Ji-woo, his mentor who had died believing in peace. He thought of the 200 people from his original battle group who never came home. He thought of Yoonji and her team, who had sacrificed themselves at the Nexus station. We won, he said quietly to the names, but the cost was everything. I hope it was worth it. Taeyang recovered from his injuries and became the head of the Assembly's Joint Defense Initiative. His quantum disruptors became standard equipment on all Assembly vessels. Not for conquest, but for defense. The galaxy had learned that military power needed to be shared, not concentrated. Hana became a captain in the Assembly's peacekeeping force. She traveled the galaxy helping species resolve disputes without war. She was good at it, using the lessons learned from humanity's struggle to prevent others from suffering the same way. Admiral Sung Min lived to see the Galactic Assembly's 10th anniversary. He died peacefully in his sleep at age 93. His funeral was attended by representatives from every Assembly species. They honored him not as a warrior, but as the man who had saved countless species from the Council's tyranny. Prime Minister Yuna served 3 more terms before retiring. She spent her final years teaching at the New Stellar Academy, where young people from dozens of species learned together. Human, Thalaxian, Chronorian, even Vrexian, all equal, all united in the belief that the old ways of empire and dominance were finished. 10 years after the war ended, Dae-hyun attended the Stellar Academy's graduation ceremony. Admiral Sung Min had been scheduled to give the commencement address before he died. Instead, the Academy asked Dae-hyun. He stood before hundreds of young cadets and told them about New Sol, about the harmony, about the choice humanity had faced. Surrender or fight, submit or resist. We chose to fight, he said. Not because we wanted war, but because the alternative was extinction. We fought not for conquest, but for the right to exist, and we won. But that victory came at a terrible price. 4 million dead at New Sol, 50 diplomats on the Harmony, thousands of ships destroyed, millions of lives ended. He paused, looking at the young faces before him, humans and aliens together, learning to build a better galaxy. You are the generation that inherits what we fought for, a galaxy where no species dominates another, where justice is real, not just a word powerful people use to excuse cruelty. You didn't fight in the war, but you live with its consequences. Make sure it wasn't for nothing. Make sure the galaxy we bled for becomes the galaxy we hoped for. The cadets stood and applauded, not just the humans, but all of them, because they understood. The war had been terrible, but it had changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same. Earth remained scarred, but beautiful. Ships from 100 species visited regularly, tourists and diplomats and students. The planet that had nearly been destroyed was now the symbol of the new galactic order, not because it was powerful, but because it had refused to break. Dae-hyun stood in his sister's rebuilt garden one evening watching the sunset. She had returned after the war, replanted everything the Council had forced her to abandon. The flowers grew again. Children played. Life continued. Was it worth it? His sister asked, standing beside him. Dae-hyun thought of all the death, all the pain, all the years of war. Then he looked at the children playing, at the garden growing, at the ships from different species flying peacefully overhead. Yes, he said finally, it was worth it. Because some things matter more than survival. Freedom matters. Dignity matters. The right to say no to tyrants matters. We paid a terrible price, but we bought something precious. A future where our children don't have to fight the way we did. His sister nodded. I hope you're right. So do I. The galaxy moved forward. The wounds healed slowly. Humanity never forgot New Soul, never forgot the cost of freedom, but they didn't let hatred define them either. They built, they grew, they reached out to other species and said, "We're equals. Let's make something better together." And slowly, impossibly, it worked. The galaxy that had almost destroyed humanity learned from humanity instead, learned that strength wasn't just military power, that civilization meant respecting all life, that the measure of advancement wasn't how many worlds you conquered, but how many voices you heard. The Council had ruled through fear. The Assembly governed through consensus. It was messy and slow and frustrating, but it was better, so much better. And Earth stood at the center of it all, a blue planet that had refused to surrender, that had chosen vengeance when pushed too far, and in doing so, had reshaped the entire galaxy.